Hey, on my Travel Ones podcast, I'm looking at Varish Goyal. Did I say that properly, Varish?
Varish Goyal.
Varish Goyal. That's a good one. How are you today, Varish?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing excellent. Varish is the president of Loop Neighborhood Markets, and I'm super excited to talk to him because I visit stores like his all the time, and I literally have looked at your Loop locator, and they will be in my phone now, so when I'm traveling, I get to see them. But if you can, give my listeners an idea of what Loop Neighborhood Markets is all about.
Yeah, thank you. So Loop Neighborhood Markets is a convenience store concept, and it's really a way for us to redefine what it means to be a convenience store. So Loop is, obviously it sells in traditional convenience store items, but we've got a very heavy focus on better for you products, that in both in the beverage areas, in the snack areas, and in fresh. So we'll carry things like fresh fruit, veggies, products that are just healthier and better for you than a traditional, say, bag of beef jerky or salty peanuts.
Or the rolling hot dogs and taquitos and all
That's
that.
correct. Now, we do sell those as well, but we give other options to consumers.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's nice. And most of your stores, the bulk of them are Northern California in the San Francisco Bay Area, but you have started to expand further south.
Yeah, so my family has been in this business since the 1970s, and so we've been owning and operating gas stations and convenience stores since then.
Okay.
We went through major expansion in 2010 when we acquired a number of locations in the Bay Area. And at the time when we acquired them, they were really kind of old, tired gas stations and, really designed for selling fuel. And really everything else was kind of ancillary to it.
Right.
And we decided that we wanted to do something different. And so that was why, after that acquisition, we spent time on developing the Loop brand.
How long has the revised Loop brand been around?
So we opened our first one in 2013. It took us about a year to develop the brand, the design, to source the product, to source the equipment. There are a lot of customized things that we needed to get made as well. So after that, we opened our first one in Santa Clara, and then we have been expanding the brand by adding about 4 to 5 new sites a year since then.
Do you think with everything that went on with the 2020 lockdowns, were you able to keep that same pace?
Yeah, actually we were.
Okay.
So, as an essential business, we were able to remain open and operate. We did see very significant volume declines. We lost about 50% of our volume in April and May when the whole shelter-in-place started. Yeah. I will say that I'm very proud of the fact that we did not have to lay anybody off or cut anybody's job or anything like that. We were able to adjust and keep all our team members employed, which was a big focus of our team and our family. Was that we were that would be a last ditch thing that we would do. We wouldn't try to do it initially. Right. And so, but construction projects just have such large lead times.
Yeah.
And there were some delays because we couldn't get into cities to get permits, and at one point construction had to stop because of the shelter-in-place orders early on. But we've been fortunate to be able to continue that our pace of growth and new construction while we've been in this sort of weird, crazy times.
What I was going to ask you is, you said your sales for those months were off 50%. Is that gas and the store, or is it just the stores? Or
It was mainly gas. So that it's a very good sort of perception there. That it was mostly gas. So what we found was that since our stores are predominantly Northern California, and Northern California is very tech heavy, service related heavy, a lot of those employees, a lot of the companies in our area chose to do work from home. So you saw just drive traffic drop completely. Now the C-store itself, although they didn't decline as much. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that there was a mad rush for product. If you remember during that time, everybody was looking for toilet paper and hand sanitizer and drinks and food and all this kind of stuff. So there was I think when the grocery stores and the big stores started to run out of stuff, we became the secondary. Convenience stores and sort of smaller marts became a secondary source for these things. And so we saw that our sales didn't decline as much inside the store as they did at fuel.
Perfect. The one thing I noticed too is the way where you've placed your stores, and I don't know if you've built new ones, but this is a compliment. You're very good at placing your stores. And I'm sure that's got to be a huge consideration when you're opening, but I'm looking at the locations like, okay, that's a college. You're in Berkeley. You're by the park in San Francisco. Oh, you're over by, you're in really good spots. So you've done a great job with that. How much traveling have you done to do you have to, because you said you're at least a year out for new locations.
Yeah. So, a lot of the sites that we have today we got through the acquisition in 2010. And let's face it, if you think back 20, 30 years, oil companies did a very, very good job of locating their gas stations at the corner of Main and Main.
Yeah.
Right. They've always picked great locations from a traffic perspective. And we've been the beneficiary of it when we did our acquisition to be able to just take advantage of the fact that they have great locations. As we search for new locations, there is a lot of that we have to consider now. So where is the growth happening? What are the traffic patterns? How many rooftops are there? Why are people in that area? And what are the other things that people in the area would be looking for? So is there a shortage of grocery? Could we be a fill-in location for that from a food mart perspective, right? And so those are factors. So my brothers and I, who also work in the business, there's three of us. We spend time. We spend time looking at property and trying to figure out. So our real estate team will source property. We review the property, and then we shortlist to the ones that we want to go see. Because we have found that until you go to the property and look at it, doesn't matter what you do on Google Earth or, what you do on looking at the flyers or research you do with the city to see what development is happening. You got to go see the property, and you just got to drive the area. And there's a little bit of this like, oh, this seems right or it doesn't seem right. And there have been times where we've kind of got caught where we went to a site. We were pushing to get the site. And then we went there and we looked at it and we're like, oh man, what are we doing? This is not the right fit. So my brothers and I will usually about every 2 weeks we will pick a region that we are wanting to expand in, and then we'll go hit that area, and maybe we will see 6 to 7 to 8 properties, and kind of make evaluations on what we're interested in and what we're not.
Because I look at it and go, 'cause obviously I drive basically from San Francisco south. East to west. Paso Robles would be a good, I'm being completely selfish here. Paso Robles would work for me if you had one there, because I drive through there.
So Paso Robles, there is a site in Paso Robles we're looking at.
San Luis Obispo.
Yep. San Luis Obispo is another site we got. We just purchased a site in Templeton.
Nice.
We're looking at a couple of locations in a city called Greenfield.
I know Greenfield.
Yeah, so your Highway 5 corridor, 101 Highway 5, well, more 101 corridor, we're looking at that a lot.
Yeah. Well,
and part of our goal, was we have operations in Northern California, and the furthest south we go is Morgan Hill. And then we have operations in Southern California, and the furthest north we are is Orange County.
Yeah.
And our goal is to connect them.
I was going to say you're stuck in between, yeah.
Yes. And that's what we're trying to do with some of these property acquisitions.
Did the fire that's going on get close to the one off the 241?
So every year, we have now, unfortunately, for the last 4 years or so, the fires have gotten worse. Yeah. They've gotten larger. They've gotten more dangerous, and they've gotten really close to where we will operate. This year, the Northern California fires were not such that they were getting too close to our locations. But a couple of years ago, the ones up in the North Bay, in Santa Rosa, Sonoma, those got dangerously close. And I'd like to take an opportunity again to tell a story there, because I got to tell you, I'm very impressed with our team on this one. We had fires that got close where there were about 10 of our locations that were at risk of burning down. They had to be evacuated. We had employees that were struggling that weren't sure if their home was going to be burned down. In fact, we had one person who woke up while their house was on fire.
Oh my God.
And fortunately was able to get out. So we set up a fund to help folks in our company, and the company matched it to help our team members get, temporary shelter and basic things that you need, right? You don't realize what you lose. You lose towels, you lose bed sheets, you lose pillows. I mean, basic little things that you take for granted every day. And then the other thing that our team did, which I thought was pretty amazing, was we started to bring people in. So in the Bay Area, we have 3 shifts in our stores. And what we would do is we would bring in a shift every 8 hours. And a district manager from the Bay Area would drive with, 7 or 8 staff members up, and each one would go to a location. And then when their shift was done, another district manager would drive to bring their staff. And because we knew that in the North Bay, our staff would be preoccupied, and we didn't want to force them to, and we didn't want to pressurize them to work. So, and we were able to do that pretty well. So that's been another sort of a thing that we're very proud of as a family-run business, that we treat all of our people as family. But these fires have gotten much worse, and they continue to get closer and closer to bigger areas and more densely populated areas, which are the areas where we have our operation.
Yeah. What do you think? I mean, to a certain extent, we as people are pushing into those neighborhoods because we're running out. You know what I mean? We're pushing out, and the fires are pushing in.
Absolutely. I mean, and we know this is you living in, Southern California and me in Northern California. It's really expensive to live where we are. Yeah. And the only way you're going to solve this problem is through more housing. And if you have land that is, if you have limited land in the areas, the only option is to expand out.
Yeah.
And, we don't have unlimited land. And so that's what happens. And that's unfortunately why you see towns like Paradise and those areas get devastated, or Boulder Creek. This year, when the fires happened in Santa Cruz County, they got devastated because they're in these wooded areas. And it's because of expansion from the Bay Area or from the suburbs of Southern California.
Yeah. Yeah. My brother-in-law was at that fire. He's a battalion chief at Glendale Fire, and they brought him up. But he's fought the Malibu fires. He was at the Malibu fire a couple of years ago when another fire was close to his house, and his house was being evacuated, but he couldn't leave to fight because he was fighting the fire in Malibu. So he had his wife, my sister, had to empty out the house. So it's kind of
we're very grateful to people like your brother-in-law. It's guys like that help us be able to sleep at night better. So we're very thankful for that.
Yeah, he said the Santa Cruz fires, he was up there for the Santa Cruz, up off the 17 Scotts Valley and all that. And he said those were a lot different because the redwood trees will burn for days and weeks. And
I also heard that up there, because there hadn't been a fire in so many years, I think it was like 50 years or something, that there was just so much fuel on the ground.
He also said that the other issue they had was a lot of people wouldn't leave.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the people were kind of stubborn about evacuating.
Yeah. Well, I hope they were safe at the end of it. I don't know,
but yeah,
that's good.
So
that's good.
Here's my question. When I look at you and I go, are you from the Bay Area? Were you born and raised in that area?
Yeah. So my father came from India to the United States in the 1960s, went to the University of Washington in Seattle, and got his first job in San Francisco. And so Since then he's been in the Bay Area, and so I've been born and raised in the Bay Area. I went to elementary school, high school here.
But hang on. You went to Duke.
Yes, I did.
You went to Wake Forest University School of Medicine.
Yes.
How does that happen?
So it's a funny story, and in a sense that I always wanted to be a doctor.
Okay.
When I was a kid, I always wanted to be a doctor. I loved math and science. My dad always wanted me to be a doctor. He had a dream of having a doctor in the family, and so it all kind of worked together. So after graduating high school, I went to Duke, mainly because I wanted to be a biomedical engineer. And the only reason why I was interested in biomedical engineering because I wanted to be a doctor and I liked math and science. And so, hey, I'll be an engineering major and then go to med school.
Okay.
And so it's how it kind of worked out. I went to Duke. I got my biomedical engineering degree and barely got into med school. Like the story about how I got in was just like one day I woke up and it was 2 days before graduation. I'd been denied by every med school but 3. And I was waitlisted by those 3. I wasn't even admitted. I had missed an important meeting. I'd come back from a senior trip early, and because I had a meeting with the pre-med advisor to go through what do I do now that I've been waitlisted by 3 schools and no acceptance, and I'm only 2 days away from graduation. So I missed the meeting. I overslept it. And I woke up freaking out and thought my life was over. Tried to email her. She wouldn't respond. Tried to call her. She wouldn't respond. I was like, oh, man, I've messed up my life completely. And then I called all the schools. And the third school I called, which was Wake Forest, they said, wait a sec. They put me on hold when I asked them, hey, just checking in on my application. They put me on hold. And then they picked up the phone and said, congratulations, you've been accepted. And I was like, what?
I love that.
And so I ended up going to med school there. But in the first year, I started to recognize that I really, really enjoyed medicine from a standpoint of the knowledge of how the body works and how to treat it. But I really started to have doubts about my ability or how much I enjoyed being in the hospital and working in the hospital, which is a big problem if you want to be a doctor if you don't like working in a hospital. And so I joined the MBA program. So after my first year of med school, I applied to the business school at Wake Forest, and they had a joint program, an MD MBA that you could do. So I applied and I was accepted. And so I did an MD MBA. And about halfway through the program, I recognized that I wasn't going to practice medicine officially.
Sure.
I was probably going to be more in the healthcare space, like in terms of management or administration. And so after I graduated, I didn't match for residency. I walked into a thing called Scramble and where you get to pick whatever's left over. And I looked at the list of leftover residency spots and I said, I don't want to do this. And I left. And so I was the only kid in my class to not get a residency and moved back to California. And it was 2002. And that was a time when all of the Bay Area had basically collapsed after the first .com bubble had burst.
Yep.
And so I was an MD MBA, unemployed, married, kid on the way, living at home, and my dad was furious. He was like, "What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like I spent all this money, you spent all this time, and now you're unemployed sitting at home." And so I couldn't find a job. Ultimately, ended up finding a job at a startup that couldn't get funding and failed. And told my dad, "I'll help you out of the office a little bit." And he goes, "Yeah, I'd rather have you do that than sit at home doing nothing." And so my first project was to revamp the IT system at our stores. And the funny thing about IT is once you develop it and you get good at it, everything revolves around it.
Sure.
And so they said after a year, they said, "Look, if you leave, who's going to run this?" And so they said, "You got to stay." And one thing led to another, and here I am. That time we were a 30-store operation. And today, we're about 130 35, 40 stores operation. So we've been lucky and fortunate to have grown during that time frame as well.
Yeah, I love the overnight success story.
Yeah, overnight success, exactly right.
Yeah.
And it was why I was funny. We did our first acquisition in 2008 after I had so 6 years after I had joined. And I remember my dad and I fighting on the price of the acquisition. And so he had his old school method. He drove to every site and he said, it's going to cost this gas station is worth this much and this gas station is worth this much. And I had my business school thing where I was running discounted cash flows, projecting 10 years out and net present values and all this jazz. And we were disagreeing on price. And it was a significant disagreement. And so finally, at one point, he was like, if you give your offer, you won't win. And I was like, well, and if I don't want to win at your offer. And so ultimately, he allowed me to do my offer. And I remember 3 weeks later, he got the call and he said they accepted your offer.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, what? He said, yes. And then he said, so it took him 6 years from when I left med school. After we got the deal done, he sat me down one day and he said, I'm going to tell you this once and only once. He goes, what? I go, what? He goes, I'm glad you're not a doctor.
There you go, man.
So he said, you paid me back.
I got that. My dad passed away last year.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
And I got some of that, at the end when my daughters were in college and graduating college and all that. I got the call like, hey, you did good.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, thanks, Dad. You never say anything like
that. They
that.
play an important role. At least my dad played an amazing role in my life. Yeah. And I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am today if it wasn't for what my parents did. And so to get that from them it's an amazing feeling.
Well, the reason I was really interested when I looked up your background and I wanted to bring it up was because when my daughters graduated college, they were like, shit, what am I going to do? I'm like, I literally sat down with my daughter. She went to Cal State Northridge. She graduated and we went to lunch it was a lunch like a week before she was about to graduate, but she had graduated, but we just had to go through the process. We sit down to lunch and we're in the valley and I go, look around, Allie, all these people in here, none of them have it figured out. If that guy's got, that girl wants to get a new job and she doesn't think she's underpaid and that guy thinks he should have been a partner by now. So even though they appear successful, they're always figuring it out, I said, so don't go through this period of your life and go, oh my gosh, all my friends have it figured out or I don't have the experience and this and that, because, college kids tend to freak out a little bit when they graduate.
So you're so right on that. And it was really great advice that you gave your daughter. I got called by Duke, a couple, 2-3 years ago. They have this entrepreneurship program over the summer where their students come to the Bay Area and learn about entrepreneurship. And it's students of all sort of educational backgrounds. It's not just business people or engineers. It's people who are interested in nonprofits and marketing and everything, right? So they called me and they said, we want you to speak to our students. And I was like, do you know what business I'm in? Like, I'm not like Google or Facebook here.
Yeah.
I'm a gas station guy. They go, no. We want you to tell them your story. And I said, okay. And the reason is exactly like you said, college students tend to think of what happens in college and what happens immediately after college as final and fatal.
Yeah.
If it doesn't go the way you want, that's it. Life is over. I remember sitting there when I missed that meeting with my pre-med advisor saying, oh, my life is over, right? Like that's the way college students tend to think. And then I think they said, we want your example to show, here's a guy who went to engineering school, then went to med school and now runs a chain of gas stations, right? Like it's not final and fatal. And so I think it's really good advice that you gave your daughter. And I think all college students need to understand that.
Yeah. And I know a good percentage of my listeners are either, it's about business travelers, but I get a lot of career people that are maybe looking for a new career or looking to change or they're not sure. And I'm getting a lot of college kids. So because, if you want to find out about how to be a tour manager or a musician or any of the craziness that I've interviewed, you can listen to them and figure it out. But it's whatever I told my daughters, and I'm curious if you would agree. I told my daughter, I said, a lot of people will get jobs to provide the lifestyle that they want. They might not necessarily love that job, but it provides the things they love. A house, security, that type of thing. Some people won't only want to pursue things that they love, but they might not make a lot of money on it. An artist, whatever type of artist, digital artist, music, drawing. But if you can combine the two somehow, then you're golden. But that doesn't always work out that way.
You're right, but it also takes time, right? So, for example, if I just think about my own life, right? I love, being creative, and I'm not an artistically creative person, but I love being creative when it comes to business process, technology, and how you use it. This is an area that I literally get to focus a lot on now. Early on in my career, it was not like that. Early on in my career, it was about the nuts and bolts of operations and, making sure a store operates properly. It has all the product it needs and that it rings up properly and that your employees and team members can do the paperwork and place orders and service customers, right? So it's very, very detail oriented. But then what happens through life is, first of all, you get a lot of key experiences, which helps you figure out where you need to put your creative energy. At times, you may focus on an area that isn't necessarily an area that's going to give you the best bang for your buck. So you need to think about, so by getting these experiences and understanding how everything works together, whether it's in business or whether it's in arts or whether it's in anything you do, you start to realize that, okay, this is a pain point or this is an area where I need to focus my creative energy to solve or to make better. And then what happens is, like today, I get to do that. I get to sit down and say, all right, I don't need to worry about, is the cash getting into the bank from the gas station?
Yeah.
I can start to think about how to make it more efficient for us to get the cash into the bank, or how to make it less painful for my staff to get it from the cash to the bank. And so these are the kinds of things that you get to do throughout life. So, as long as you are working hard and focusing on sort of in an area of general interest, I think you get to a point in your life where you can have it both ways. Have a good career that makes you an honest living, that you can, support your family and take care of your children and raise them and blah, 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 all that stuff, right? But at the same time, you can be passionate about.
I totally agree with you. I mean, if you would have told me 30 years ago I'd be selling cowboy boots for a living, I would have literally laughed at you.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't even in the range of realm of my thinking. And yet I now have the best job I've ever had. I work with great people. You know what I mean? So I make great money. Like all good. But I would have never expected that.
Yeah. I mean, I remember as a kid, people saying, oh, you want to run a gas station? I mean, how hard can it be to sell Twinkies and gas, really? Like, I'm not want to do that. I want something more challenging. Well, then you get in the middle of it, you're like, oh, man, this is hard. It is really hard to do what we do. And so, it's all, I think, life sort of takes you that way. You can't give up on it. You got to keep trying and adjusting and you'll get there. I'm a big believer in it.
My second job I ever had in my entire life was working at a gas station. I was just out of high school.
Awesome.
I just graduated. This is a long time ago, back when we had full service gas stations. And I did that job for 2 years while I was in college, and it taught me so much because you find out we had mechanics, we had a full service island, we had a self-service island. We had mechanical pumps, not digital pumps.
Mm-hmm.
We had to have credit cards, which were rare. You had to slide through the little machine.
Yep.
And then we had to look up a book for every I think it was every 2 weeks. We got an updated list of default bad credit cards. So every credit card that had to be used, we had to look in the book to look and see if that number was in the book. That's how we found out if it was a fraudulent card.
Wow.
And then I think I had one or two total in my 2 years there that where I had to tell the guy, sorry,
Yeah.
which was interesting. But have you ever considered having a guy on staff that would do windows and check the tires and do all that again?
So, it's funny you say that. So with a lot of the COVID, pandemic sort of changes that have occurred, I think, and also kind of, I think there was already a movement, a change that you were seeing in consumer expectations where consumers were willing to pay more for specific services.
Sure.
So, I use an example of like buying your food, using a Grubhub, DoorDash, Uber Eats, whatever you have it, or Postmates, right?
Yep.
So when you buy it off their website, number one, you pay more for the dish because these guys usually take some sort of money from the restaurant, so the restaurateur marks up the dishes. Then you pay more for the delivery fee, right? But people are willing to pay for that for the convenience of not having to go pick up their food anymore. And during COVID, they were willing to do that even more. And so before, as you know, full service was the thing in gas stations, and then it kind of died because people weren't willing to pay the upcharge that you would have to pay to do that. And I think you're seeing that shift again where consumers, not everybody, but certain consumers are willing to pay for that convenience. And so we are actually evaluating how we might be able to add back full service, check, wipe your windows, things like that into our sites for those who are willing to do it.
I always wondered, your margins, and I know they're probably thinner than people would think, because I know a lot of the gas prices is taxes.
Yep.
But if you just had one person, I was about to say a guy, but if you had one person sitting out there and in a uniform saying, if you'd like me to do your windows, just let me know. I'd be happy to. If you need me to check your tires, your oil, whatever. If you don't, you just want to get your gas, get out, that's cool too. But so it wouldn't necessarily be a full service island where you'd have to pay charge and upcharge, but just a purely a service based. I don't know.
Yeah, and that is there obviously are costs associated with that you have to evaluate. Employees, and labor cost is not a cost that is going down, or it is also, and it's going up. So you have to evaluate that. I think that there are some advantages though to differentiating yourself with those types of services, and so we actually are so we have a loyalty program.
Yeah.
And currently in our loyalty platform, it's a points-based type program, and we don't really do any tiering of customers. But eventually, that's a goal of ours to tier customers. And then as we tier them, because our loyalty program is pretty young, it's only about 2 years old. And so, as we start to tier and say, okay, which customers are, gold, silver, whatever you want to call them, right? Then we might, we could consider sort of these additional services that we can add on as complementary to folks who are our best customers. But these are things that I think you have to, sort of think about strategically and allocate and sort of understand what the costs are, because it is difficult.
I think like I said, I know the margins are thinner than people think.
Yeah.
But it seems like if you had that loyalty program, like I know some of your locations, I don't know if all of them do, but they have car washes.
Correct.
So if I get 100 loyalty points or 300 loyalty points, whatever, I get a free car wash.
Yes.
Or I can maybe you get a little sticker that goes on the window, and so if you have an island person, they know that they're going to do the windows. You know what I mean? You could do
yes.
things. Yeah, especially I know, because I was always surprised. I mean, back when I was doing it, gas was like 95 cents a gallon. It was 85, 90 cents a gallon. And full service was like $1.20.
Yep.
So it was significant. But most of my customers on the full service were women, because they just didn't want to deal with it.
Yep.
They didn't want to smell like gas. They didn't want to touch the pump. They didn't want to, they weren't going to clean their windows. So,
yeah, you're absolutely right. And, so for example, in our loyalty platform, if you are a loyalty customer, you get a discount on car wash.
Yeah.
Each time you buy. A lot of our gas stations, we even give you a reduction of fuel price when you buy a car wash. We also have a club for car wash. Every time you buy one, you buy 5, 6, one is free. And then we recently launched a bundle. So you pre-buy 5 car washes, let's say, and then you could then every time you use the car wash, you've already paid for it, and then you get the 6th one free, and you still get the reduction in the fuel price if you go to one of our stores that offers the reduction in the fuel price.
Oh, there you go.
But this way, you could buy a pack of 5 to 10 car washes at a discounted price. And so these are some of the things that we've started to do with car washes as well, to sort of enhance the program as we get better at implement. As we get more people, then you can invest in these kinds. As you get more people signed up to your loyalty program, you can actually invest in these kinds of benefits.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, because then you've got to make sure that they're aware of it. Because now I can get gas and not even go in and not talk to anybody at your company. I just go put my credit card in there. So somehow you've got to interface with them without them having to go inside. So I'm sure you have.
And that is hard. Because a lot of people at the pumps don't want to be talked to.
Yeah.
And because that's not why they came there. That's not what they're expecting, and they don't want it, right? And so we've tried this where you have staff members outside trying to talk to people about the loyalty problem. Obviously, right now with COVID, we've stopped it. We just don't do it. But prior to this, we would do that, and it was out of, hey, look, these are some of the benefits you can get. And then you got to kind of approach a person and first understand, do they even want to be talked to? And if they don't, then you leave them alone. But if they are willing to listen and talk, then you have the conversation. But you're right. That is the hardest, because about 75 to 80% of our customers never walk in the store. They never talk to a person. Yeah. They gas up and go. And that's a large percentage of people. So you try to do it with signage. You try to do it with, random interaction. You try to do it with people trying to approach people at the pump to talk about it. But yeah, it is difficult to get folks to understand what you're offering. And, I think historically the gas station experience has really been kind of blah, and it hasn't really changed much. There's not a lot of innovation in the experience. So because as an industry as a whole, we haven't done a lot of this stuff, consumers don't think about it. It's like you walk into into an Apple store, you're expecting to see something new. Yeah. You're expecting to see something cool. You're expecting to, find something that you might find useful. Even if you don't know what you're looking for, when you walk in, you're interested in looking for things. But you go to a gas station and you don't expect that, right? You expect the same old thing. You swipe your credit card, you pick your fuel grade, you pump. I mean, really, if you think about it, in the last 20 years, what real technology changes have there been at a gas station? I think I can think of only 3. One is credit card at the pump. Now you can pay at the pump. Before you had to go inside. 2 is, instead of having 3 nozzles, one for each grade of gasoline, there's 1, and you plus your grade of gasoline with a button. Yep. And 3rd probably is we got a really boring monochrome color screen that is doesn't even have a touch screen, that's got some buttons that do like 2 things. Yeah. Yes, no answer, that's about it, that you have on the screen, and that's pretty much it.
You're right.
When you think about the last 20 years, what's changed in your pocket?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I think that's part of the struggle we face. And it's also the struggle we face with Loop. So I have a really great friend who is just this he runs like a think tank, and we were just talking one day, and he goes, Varish, the struggle you're going to have is you're going to have to change people's script. And I go, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, people have a script in everything they do. And so when they go to the gas station, they have a script in their mind of what's inside the store, what's my experience going to be, what's the process going to be for me to complete my transaction and go? What is it going to be like to talk to that person inside the store? What is that going to feel like? What is that experience going to be like? All of that is already predetermined. It's a script. And to change that script is very difficult. So if you're going to change the script of somebody to think that, if I walk into Loop, I'm going to have more options than just, an energy drink and and a roller grill item.
Yeah.
That there are going to be options for me. I'm more of a healthy individual, therefore there's nothing in there for me. And how do you change that script? And that's really, really difficult to do. And I think as an industry, if we did it, then you start to then I think people will start to change their script. But as individual companies or people trying to do it, it's really difficult. I think about when we started offering coffee at our stores, it was the same thing, right? Nobody used to think about having coffee at a gas station until every gas station started offering coffee.
Yeah. But it's going to be interesting because you're right. I mean, there are so many times I'm just thinking of all my personal experiences of stopping at gas stations in random places as I'm on the road. And I'm always looking for a gas station that has a convenience store, but that doesn't. There are plenty that don't, especially in the more rural areas. But
yes,
you go in and it's literally just a rack of candy, some chips, and some donuts, and like you said, the energy drinks, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. It's the easy to sell, long shelf life, easy to procure. Easy to procure. It's hard to procure fresh stuff because the other, a lot of fresh delivery has minimums. So they'll say, "Look, I'm not going to stop a truck." And you can't blame the distribution company, but they say, "I can't stop a truck for a $20 order or even a $500 order."
Yeah. And
so, you end up in these scenarios where you're by the way, my product's got short shelf life. So if you order too much and it expires, well, you got to throw it away. And so being able to procure that product and get it to your stores in an efficient fashion is extremely difficult. And a lot of people don't think about that enough. Well, larger companies do, but a lot of people don't.
Well, and to any of my listeners, he has salad machines in some of his stores. I don't know if they're in all of them, but what's it called? The Sally machine or?
We had a Sally. We had it. It's gone now. But yes, we did. We tested it for a while. So when we first opened Loop, we had a salad bar in the stores where you can go and make your own salads, and that has been limited now to 3-4 locations. We were probably too early to the punch on that one, and I think people are just not ready for it. And with COVID, we've had to shut them down anyways.
Yeah.
So because of all the risk of infection. So we did that. And then what we tested was a machine that had containers of ingredients. And then you would select the type of salad you wanted, and then the machine would mix the ingredients into a bowl for you, and then you would have a prepared salad. So we tried that out as well. That's, again, like I told you earlier, it's one of the fun parts about our job is that we get to try some of these things. And we have a fresh orange juice maker, which I absolutely love. I think the orange juice that comes out of this is amazing.
I've seen those.
And so we've done that. And then we've had espresso machines that make a customized espresso for you. You could pick your milk, you could pick the flavor you want, and the type. You want an espresso shot, you want a macchiato, you want a cappuccino, you want a latte. It does that for you. And I really, really liked those machines. I thought they gave really good product. In fact, my kids whenever we would go anywhere, and we needed to stop at a Loop, that was like they would go get a hot chocolate from that machine because they just loved it. So that's those are some of the fun things that we get to try. Not all of it works.
Well, no, but I mean, I wonder if
we try it.
I wonder if you hit more like Lenwood and Barstow, like I said, the Grapevine, some of the trucker areas. I wonder if those would do better there. I don't know.
So we've historically. So it's funny you're hitting kind of what we're looking at now. So it's obvious you travel a lot because you you think a little bit like a gas station guy here. So so it's interesting. We've historically not done truck stops. Our stores are very, very, very much in urban settings, and our lots are pretty small, and small lots don't do well for trucks. But we have been looking at, as we move, as we talked about these corridors like High 101 Templeton or Greenfield, or not necessarily San Luis Obispo. There's a little bit harder to do it there. But actually, we are looking at a property in Barstow, for example. Perfect. So what we are considering is, yes, having not making like a massive sort of truck stop, but a truck fueling location where truckers could come fuel, go to the restroom and grab a healthier option at our store. And so that is something that we've been working on, and that hopefully will launch, depending upon how long it takes to get approvals, in a year to year and a half. We also are working on a brand new fresh food concept, made to order. So come into our store and you would be made to order pizzas, Italian style, so thin crust, and but you would be able to pick your toppings, and we would make it for you on site. In that way. So that would be a very a very fresh way. It's no longer frozen product. It's nothing. It's made as you want it, when you want it.
Yeah, God, I forget the name of the chain, and I don't want to say it on the show, but it's the Subway of pizzas. I mean,
yes.
Yeah, I mean, God, there's one right by LAX, and I go to it, and it's like you said, it's a thin crust, and it's awesome. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So now, I think it would be surprising. Do you have to, or do you get to go to trade shows?
Absolutely. Tons of them.
It's huge, right?
In fact, I could go to a trade show every week.
Yeah.
Well, right. I mean, there's just so many.
Used to.
Used to. But yeah, we focus. So there's a we go to obviously our industry, the National Association of Convenience Stores, has a large trade show that would normally happen in October. So that's one that we go to. We have smaller industry events related to benchmarking conferences where you learn about how you can see how you compare it against the industry, some leadership stuff around sort of strategic thinking. But then also our industry does a really good job of having educational programs that say major educational institutions for you to learn about a specific topic. Cornell has a leadership one. They have a IT one at MIT. They have one at Northwestern for women leaders. So they have those kind of programs. And then you've got all the ancillary stuff, like you have food trade shows, you have equipment trade shows, you've got car wash trade shows, you've got trade shows just specific for fuel delivery, which is a business that we do. So there are many trade shows that I go to. I limit them now as much as I can. Even before COVID, I started to limit them, just because you'd be traveling and I'd be in a hotel every week. I'd never be home if I went to every trade show opportunity that we had.
That's the one thing I don't think people understand is, like I'm sure a lot of people look at you and go, oh, you just run a gas station, like a gas station, because they don't go, oh, well, your Loop neighborhood, oh, you've got 100 locations, but you also have, I mean, I can, like in my industry now, there's not too many, but there are several, but I mean, with your industry, like you said, there's one for everything. You have car wash. I mean, I can only imagine going through.
Yeah. Now you've got cannabis. Right.
Oh,
right? So cannabis is legal, and so you've got, trade shows just for cannabis products. You've got, and in the old days, we would never go to a technology trade show.
No.
Why would we need to go to a technology trade show? Well, now you've got technology trade shows. So I think as businesses get more complicated and businesses are using and looking for services or products from a wide range of industries and product groups, that significantly expands the amount of management and time you spend learning about them.
Yeah.
I had to go to we had to go to, not me specifically, but our company sent folks to, specific trade show on cannabis and CBD and hemp, because we had no clue what this stuff was. It's now legal, and we needed to figure out what to do and how to get our feet wet, or even if this was something we were interested in doing. And so the only way we could do this was go to trade shows and start talking to people who knew the industry well.
I know in Denver, because I go to Denver, my corporate office is based in Denver, Aurora. And so I fly there 4 times a year for our meetings. I used to. Now we're doing them virtual. But there are actual dispensaries at the backsides of gas stations. So, it was just bizarre. You go into the front to get gas, but then you have to go outside, and it had to have a separate entrance. But you go around the side and you walk in, you're now in a cannabis dispensary.
Yep. I've been to one of those.
Like, okay. It's just bizarre. It's like,
yep.
At the time I went into that, it was still illegal here for
yes.
So it was just bizarre. It's like, oh my gosh. I always tell people, it's like, I'm in my 50s, so I remember most of my life it was illegal. So now when I smell it, I'm like, whoa, I'm like, oh, they're not breaking the law anymore.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
It's so bizarre.
It is really bizarre.
Well, hey, I appreciate the time and all the knowledge. What's the best way for my listeners to find out what's going on with Loop? I mean, you're a big hirer of people. I mean, you're not just. So.
Yeah, and right now we could hire a lot of people. There's unfortunately, I think there's a lot of fear about what's happening. We've done a lot to protect our employees and to keep them safe, and unfortunately, we've just had a hard time getting employees. But yes, if you want to learn more about Loop and where we are, what we're doing, what are some of the career opportunities, I mean, the best place is our website.
Okay.
And that is real easy. It's Loop, and then the word neighborhood, Loop Neighborhood Market. But the website is www.loopneighborhood.com.
Yeah, and it's a great website.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it went through a recent refresh, so I'm glad you like it.
Absolutely. Are you on social media, on Instagram or Facebook?
Yes, we're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. Okay. Search for Loop Neighborhood. And if you want to, I would highly recommend if you live in the areas where we operate and you visit our stores, to join our loyalty program. You go to your Apple store or your Google store and Play Store, and you just type in Loop Neighborhood again. You'll see our app. You can join and register, and there are a lot of cool things that are going to come in the near future on that. So, get started, get your points. There are a lot of savings there, but then there's going to be some really neat things that we're going to be doing in the next, hopefully, 6 months.
I'll definitely be hitting up your San Jose stores and probably your Santa Clara store and maybe the Redwood City store, just knowing where I travel.
That's awesome.
So, I like I said, I really appreciate the time. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah,
it's a great conversation. Super fun.
Appreciate it. And hopefully I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, we will. Take care.
Thanks, Varish.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.